welcome to a new edition of Africa Today, and in this edition of our program we will review some reports from the African continent, and we start from Angola, where U.S. President Joe Biden is on a visit to the country reportedly to promote investments. A centerpiece of his trip is showcasing U.S. commitment of $3 billion for the Lobito Corridor, a railway redevelopment linking Zambia, Congo and Angola that is meant to make it far easier to move raw materials in the continent and for exports. Details follow.
Joe Biden is using the first visit to Angola by a U.S. president to promote Washington's investments in the sub-Saharan African nation and see a slavery museum where he'll acknowledge the trafficking of human beings that once linked the two nations' economies. The centerpiece of his trip is showcasing a U.S. commitment of $3 billion for the Lobito Corridor, a railway development linking Zambia, Congo and Angola that is meant to make it far easier to move raw materials in the continent and for export. The project also has drawn financing from the European Union, the group of 7 leading industrialized nations, a Western-led private consortium and African banks. The project aims to advance the U.S. presence in a region rich in critical minerals used in batteries for electric vehicles, electronic devices and clean energy technologies, and to counter China's heavy investments in mining and processing African minerals. The U.S. has for years built relations in Africa through trade, security and humanitarian aid. The 800-mile railway upgrade is a different move and has shades of China's Belt and Road infrastructure strategy in Africa and other parts of the world. Biden is to fly to the Angolan coastal city of Lobito on Wednesday for a first-hand look at a port terminal that is the Atlantic Ocean outlet for the corridor. White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby said the Biden administration has absolutely transformed U.S.-Africa relations and that the corridor's completion is going to take years, but there has already been a lot of work put in. That means much of it may fall to Biden's successor, Republican Donald Trump, who takes office on January 20th.
And to shed more light on the importance of this visit, we are joined over the phone by Mr. Raouf Ghaffar. He is a political analyst. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So, sir, how do you see and weigh the timing of the visit by U.S. President Joe Biden to Angola while he is serving his last days in the presidency?
Well, it's a courtesy visit, but again, we know that China and Russia have been very active in working in Africa. Their presence, their investments, their cooperation, joint ventures, etc., was overwhelming in Africa. So the United States wanted to take part of this and not to leave it all to the eastern side, and that is why they have given a huge grant and soft loan to Angola to build a railway joining the Congo, Zambia and Angola, which are very rich with minerals, and so they can be transported to the port in Angola en route towards Europe and the United States. So at the end, it's a project of both common interest between the two countries. It will serve, of course, the interests of the United States by acquiring minerals and oil, etc., coming from Africa, and in the same time, it's a show of I should say, force to Russia and China, a message to say that we are present in Africa, we are helping Africa, we are
Yes, Mr. Raouf. Yes, Biden's visit is focused on a major infrastructure project, a railway line carrying minerals from inland countries to the Angolan port of Lobito for exports. How do you see the importance of this project for the country?
A project toward Europe and huge impact. But once again, to leave huge in 27.
Mr. Raouf, there is a technical problem with the voice, so short break, dear viewers, and we'll be back, so stay tuned.
Criticized Ethiopia for suspending 3 rights NGOs, accusing them of squeezing shut the last remaining space for independent oversight at a time of worsening conflict. Since November 14, the government has ordered the suspension of the Center for the Advancement of Rights and Democracy, CARD, the Association for Human Rights in Ethiopia, ARE, and Lawyers for Human Rights, LHR, accusing them of political bias and harming national interests. Human Rights Watch said the government's latest assault shows that Ethiopia remains among the most inhospitable places to criticize government actions and promote human rights. Human Rights Watch said that the groups which insist they are politically neutral were targeted shortly after they signed a public letter criticizing proposed amendments to Ethiopia's media law. The amended law aims to bring the country's media authority under the direct control of the Prime Minister's office. The government has previously suspended rights groups, including international NGOs, for criticizing its conduct in the devastating 2020 to 2022 war in the Tigray region that killed hundreds of thousands of people. The Horn of Africa country of around 120 million people is still facing multiple conflicts, particularly in the most populous regions of Amhara and Oromia, where federal forces are fighting armed militias.
And that was a report from Ethiopia, as Human Rights Watch has criticized Ethiopia over the suspension of rights groups in the country. Since November 14th, the government has ordered the suspension of a number of NGOs, accusing them of political bias and harming national interests. And moving to Namibia, where Namibia's ruling SWAPO party led both the presidential and parliamentary races on Thursday, a week after voting took place in an election marred by technical challenges. SWAPO, which has governed the southern African nation since leading it to independence from apartheid South Africa in 1990, fielded the Vice President Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwah as its presidential candidate. Details follow.
Namibia was headed for its first woman president, with 2/3 of the votes from last week's election counted by early Tuesday, giving the governing party candidate a strong lead in a vote the main opposition has already rejected as a sham. Vice President Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwah from the SWAPO party, that has led the mineral-rich country since independence 34 years ago, had just over 54% of votes, according to an electoral commission tally of nearly 66% of votes. The leader of the main opposition Independent Patriots for Change IPC, Pandoleni Itula, was well behind with just over 28% of votes. The November 27 election was extended twice, as logistical and technical problems, including a shortage of ballot papers, led to long queues that meant some voters gave up on the first day of voting, after waiting for up to 12 hours. Nandi Ndaitwah, 72, could be forced into a second-round runoff vote if she does not have more than 50% of votes when all results are in. The results released early Tuesday were for 79 of 121 constituencies, including all but 2 in the capital Windhoek. Of the nearly 1.5 million registered voters, 73% had cast ballots. The Southwest Africa People's Organization SWAPO has governed Namibia since leading it to independence from apartheid South Africa in 1990. But high youth unemployment and enduring inequalities have disenchanted younger voters.
Well, dear viewers, that's all for Africa Today. Thank you for watching.